Have you ever had a job that looked great on paper, but deep down something just didn't feel right? Maybe you had the title, the salary, the benefits, but every morning it took everything you had just to show up. If that's you, I want to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. It's not burnout, it's not lack of motivation, it's values misalignment. And the cost of ignoring your values at work is a lot higher than most people realize. Let's start simple. Values are the things that matter most to you. They're not goals, they're not external achievements, they're your inner compass, the quiet drivers that shape your decisions, your relationships, and your energy. When you live and work in alignment with your values, you feel congruent. Things make sense. There's a sense of ease even when things are hard. But when you work against your values, it's like trying to swim upstream every single day. You can do it for a while, but eventually you get tired. And that exhaustion doesn't come from overwork, it comes from inner conflict. So, how do we lose touch with our values? For most people, it happens slowly. At first, we're just trying to prove ourselves. We want to be dependable, make a living, to take care of the people we love. We compromise a little here and a little there. And before we know it, the gap between who we are and what we do has grown wide. I've seen this pattern so many times, both as a recruiter and as a coach. Someone lands what looks like a dream job, great company, solid pay, clear career path. But within months, something feels off. They're performing well, but emotionally they're drained. They start asking themselves, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be happy here? And the answer isn't that anything's wrong with them. It's that they're working in a space that conflicts with their values. And that creates a kind of quiet emotional friction that builds over time. I know this pattern because I've lived it myself. For a long time, my identity was built around being the guy who gets it done. In recruiting, I was driven by results, performance metrics, placements, goals, and I was good at it. But somewhere along the way, I stopped asking if the way I worked actually matched what mattered most to me. I valued connection, purpose, and growth, but my days were filled with urgency, competition, and constant output. I remember at one point in my career when I was hitting my numbers, earning well, and on the outside it looked like I was thriving, but I was exhausted, numb, and disconnected from myself. I realized I was chasing professional success at the expense of personal alignment. And that's a trade that never pays off for long. When you ignore your values at work, you might not notice the effects right away. They creep in slowly in ways that look like other problems. Here's some of the hidden costs that I can see, right? Chronic stress and burnout. When your work constantly pushes against what you believe in, your nervous system stays in fight or flight mode. You can only fake enthusiasm for so long before your body rebels. Low motivation is another way. It's hard to stay excited about goals that don't mean anything to you. You start procrastinating not because you're lazy, but because your inner drive isn't being fed. Emotional disconnection. When we can't be yourself at work, you start to shut parts of yourself down. You become the version of you that fits in, that performs, that pleases, and that slowly erodes authenticity. Another way is relationship strain. The frustration doesn't just stay at work. It leaks into your home life, irritability, exhaustion, resentment, loss of self-trust. Maybe the hardest part, when you keep betraying your own values, you stop trusting your own voice. You start to believe the story that maybe this is just how it has to be, but it doesn't. For me, the turning point came when I realized I couldn't help others find fulfilling careers while ignoring my own sense of purpose. That's when I started doing my own inventory, and I got honest about the gap between what I said I valued and how I was actually living. And I'll tell you, it wasn't easy, right? It required me to slow down, to get quiet, and to face truths and things I'd been avoiding. But the moment I started aligning my work with my values again, everything began to shift. Work became less about achievement and more about alignment. And that's when Sapien Coaching Solutions was born. From that realization, that real success isn't just what you accomplish, but who you become in the process. So, I don't know, if any of this resonates, here are 3 steps to start realigning your own career with your values. First, revisit what really matters to you. Your values can change over time. The things that mattered to you when you were 25 might not be what matters now. Ask yourself, what do I need more of in my life, and what drains me consistently? When do I feel most alive and most like myself? Write down the answers and see if there's any patterns. Secondly, identify the gaps. Once you know your values, compare them to your daily reality. If you value creativity but spend your days checking boxes, that's misalignment. If you value family but work 80 hours a week, that's misalignment. You don't have to fix all of this overnight, right? But you can start by being honest about where the tension lives. Um, and take small, courageous steps towards alignment. Realignment doesn't always mean just quitting your job tomorrow. It might start with one conversation, one boundary, one small act of honesty, right? Every small decision that honors your values builds momentum towards a life that feels authentic. Here's what I've learned. Alignment isn't a luxury. It's not something you earn once you've achieved enough. It's the foundation that makes everything else sustainable. When your work and your values align, you don't need to chase motivation. You wake up with it, right? You don't burn out trying to prove yourself because you're fueled by meaning, not fear. And the fulfillment that comes from that isn't something external. It's internal. It's peace. It's congruence. It's the quiet knowing that your life actually fits you. So if you've been feeling disconnected from your work, it might not be about the job itself. It might be about the gap between what you do and what you value. That gap is where burnout lives. It's where resentment grows. And it's where a lot of good people start to lose their spark. Here's the good news. That gap can also become the space where you start to rebuild alignment. You don't have to throw everything away. You just have to start listening again, listening to your own voice, your own values, your own truth. Because ignoring your values is expensive, but honoring them pays dividends that last a lifetime. If this message hits home for you, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below. Have you ever felt the tension between your values and your work? And if you're on a path of rediscovery and renewal, hit subscribe. I share weekly videos about realigning career and life, especially for midlife professionals who are ready for what's next. You don't have to figure it out alone. This is a path we can walk together.